The midnight sun cast its eternal glow across the Lofoten Islands as 19-year-old Astrid Larsen stepped into the endless Norwegian summer night. It was June 21st, 2016, the solstice, when the sun never sets and time loses all meaning in the Arctic Circle. Her hiking boots left perfect prints in the mountain moss as she headed toward Kvalvika beach, camera in hand, chasing the perfect shot of the midnight sun reflecting off the Norwegian sea. The granite peaks of Lofoten rose like ancient Viking, monuments around her, their jagged silhouettes cutting sharp lines against the golden Arctic sky. The GPS on her phone showed 11:47 p.m., but the golden light made it feel like afternoon. The traditional red Råbur cabins of Rain looked like scattered rubies against the dramatic landscape as she moved away from civilization into the vast Nordic wilderness. That was the last anyone saw of her alive. But what happened in the vast Norwegian landscapes remains a mystery that even the most experienced Arctic search and rescue teams couldn't solve, hidden somewhere in the endless light of the Nordic midnight sun, where time itself seemed to bend and reality blurred into something far more mysterious than anyone could have imagined in the remote corners of Scandinavia. Astrid was everything you'd expect from a Norwegian mountain girl raised in the shadow of the Arctic Circle. Born and raised in the fishing village of Reyne, population barely 300, she knew the Lofoten peaks like her own heartbeat, every granite formation and hidden trail memorized from childhood adventures. Her Instagram was filled with breathtaking shots of Nordic landscapes, aurora borealis dancing over fjords in ethereal green curtains, traditional red Råbur cabins standing defiant against dramatic skies, the raw beauty of life above the Arctic Circle captured with an artist's eye, and a local's intimate knowledge. Photography wasn't just her passion. It was her connection to the ancient Norse relationship with nature, following in the footsteps of generations who had found meaning in the harsh beauty of the northern lands. Her sister Emma described her as fearless but never reckless, someone who understood that the Norwegian wilderness demanded respect and preparation, not just courage. Astrid had been planning this midnight sun shoot for months, studying weather patterns with meteorological precision, analyzing tide tables from the Norwegian Coast Guard, and calculating the perfect positioning for capturing the solstice phenomenon that drew photographers from around the world to the Arctic Circle. She knew the trail to Kvalvika beach better than anyone. She'd hiked it dozens of times since childhood, even worked as a guide for tourists during the summer season, earning extra money while sharing her love for the Nordic landscape. The local Sami community respected her understanding of the land and its ancient rhythms, and fellow hikers sought her advice on navigating Lofoten's challenging terrain, knowing she possessed both technical knowledge and the intuitive understanding that comes from a lifetime in the Arctic. Her photography equipment was professional grade, but perfectly suited for Nordic conditions. Weatherproof, reliable in extreme temperatures, designed for the unique challenges of Arctic photography, where equipment failure could mean more than just missed shots. However, behind the peaceful life in Nordic lands, there were details no one had noticed, details that would become crucial to understanding how someone could simply vanish in one of the world's most organized and safe regions. During the endless daylight of midnight sun, when visibility should have made disappearance nearly impossible. When Astrid didn't return by noon the next day, her parents contacted the local rescue service, triggering one of the most efficient emergency response systems in the world. In Norway, the system mobilized with characteristic Nordic efficiency and precision. The Hovedredningssentralen, Norway's Joint Rescue Coordination Center, immediately coordinated with local police, volunteer rescue teams, and the Royal Norwegian Air Force. Military helicopters swept the dramatic peaks, while ground teams combed every trail between Rhine and Kvalvika beach, their red and white aircraft standing out brilliantly against the granite cliffs and endless Arctic sky. The midnight sun that had drawn Astrid out was now their greatest ally. 24 hours of perfect visibility meant continuous searching without the hindrance of darkness that plagued rescue operations in other parts of the world. The entire village, Javreina, joined the effort, embodying the Norwegian principle of dugnadsånd, the collective community spirit that defines Nordic society and transforms individual crisis into communal action. Local fishermen launched their boats to search the treacherous coastline, their generations of experience with Arctic waters invaluable in understanding how quickly the Norwegian sea could claim someone. Mountain rescue teams rappelled down cliffsides with precision born of countless training exercises, checking every ledge and crevice where someone might have fallen or taken shelter. The Norwegian Red Cross deployed their most experienced trackers, volunteers who knew the Lofoten landscape intimately and could read the subtle signs that urban search teams might miss. They followed Astrid's route step by methodical step, documenting every detail with forensic precision. Her footprints were found easily enough on the soft mountain moss, the Arctic vegetation holding impressions like a natural record of her passage, leading steadily toward the beach through terrain she knew. Better than most local rescue personnel, the prints showed her typical hiking gait, confident and steady. No signs of distress or hurried movement. But then, at a specific point overlooking the Norwegian Sea, where the trail offered the most spectacular view of the midnight sun, they simply stopped. No signs of struggle, no indication she'd fallen or been dragged away by wildlife. The prints just ended, as if she'd vanished into the endless Nordic light itself, leaving behind only the mysterious silence of the Arctic wilderness. If you're interested in mysteries of disappearances in Nordic landscapes, leave a like to help. Us continue bringing these unique stories from Scandinavia, because what we discovered about those first hours of the search would reveal how even the most efficient systems can fail against the vastness of the Nordic wilderness under the eternal midnight sun. As the investigation intensified across the Norwegian terrain, each new theory only deepened the mystery, confronting investigators with Nordic nature's unforgiving reality and the humbling vastness of the Arctic landscape. The Royal Norwegian Air Force deployed their most advanced thermal imaging helicopters, sophisticated military equipment capable of scanning every meter of the Lofoten peaks for heat signatures with precision that could detect a human body from incredible distances, even when hidden among the complex granite formations that defined the island chain. The technology represented the pinnacle of Nordic engineering and military capability, yet it revealed nothing but the cold stone and occasional Arctic wildlife. Search dogs from the Norwegian Red Cross followed Astrid's scent trail with their sensitive noses detecting traces that human searchers would never perceive, their training honed for Arctic conditions, where scents behaved differently in the thin, cold air. The trail led consistently toward Kvalvika Beach, winding through the traditional Nordic landscape of moss-covered boulders worn smooth by millennia of Arctic weather, past ancient Viking paths that had been walked by generations of Norwegians seeking the sea. Marine rescue units from the Norwegian Coast Guard deployed their fastest vessels to search the treacherous waters around Lofoten, their crews knowing intimately how the Arctic currents could carry someone far from where they'd entered the unforgiving sea, and how quickly hypothermia could claim a life in waters that never warmed above dangerous temperatures even in summer. The midnight sun created an eerie, almost supernatural atmosphere during the search. Rescuers working through what should have been night, their shadows sharp and distinct against granite cliffs in the eternal golden light that made time feel suspended and reality slightly unmoored. Weather conditions had been perfect that solstice night. No storms, minimal wind. The kind of stable Arctic weather that made the midnight sun phenomenon so spectacular for photographers and hikers alike. Norwegian meteorologists confirmed through detailed analysis that no sudden weather changes could have caught an experienced hiker like Astrid off guard. No hidden storms, no unexpected temperature drops, nothing in the atmospheric data that could explain a sudden emergency. The Kvalvika Beach Trail was well maintained and clearly marked, inspected regularly by the Norwegian Hiking Association, and considered one of the safer routes in Lofoten despite its dramatic cliffside sections. There had been no recent rock slides, no dangerous conditions reported by other hikers, no equipment failures or trail deterioration that might have created unexpected hazards. Local Sami guides who had known the land for generations, whose families had navigated these paths for centuries, couldn't explain how someone could vanish on such a familiar route during perfect conditions. Geographic positioning data from cell towers showed Astrid's phone last connected to the network near the specific viewpoint where her footprints ended, but the device itself was never recovered despite intensive searches using metal detectors and ground-penetrating radar. But as the investigation advanced through the inhospitable Nordic landscapes, each new piece of evidence only deepened the mystery, confronting investigators with the reality that Nordic nature guards its secrets with implacable force beneath the eternal light of the midnight sun. The unique setting of the Norwegian midnight sun generated theories that could only occur in the Arctic Circle, where the fundamental rhythms of day and night were disrupted by astronomical phenomena. Investigators seriously considered circadian rhythm disruption. The endless daylight could disorient even experienced locals, making someone lose track of time and direction in ways that wouldn't happen during normal day-night cycles. The phenomenon of midnight sun madness was well documented in Nordic psychological studies, where the eternal light triggered disorientation, impulsive behavior, and even hallucinations in susceptible individuals, particularly during the peak solstice period when the sun reached its highest point. Marine biologists suggested Astrid might have been drawn too close to the Arctic waters, while seeking the perfect photographic angle, where hypothermia could incapacitate someone within minutes, the Norwegian sea's temperature remaining deadly. Even during the warmest summer months, the waters around Lofoten were notorious for unpredictable currents and sudden weather changes that could create dangerous conditions even during apparently calm periods, with underwater topography that could trap bodies for years. Wildlife experts investigated recent polar bear sightings, though none had been reported in the Lofoten area for decades, and more realistically considered the possibility of Arctic foxes or other wildlife startling someone near the treacherous cliff edges where a single misstep could prove fatal. Geological surveys conducted by the Norwegian University of Science and Technology revealed hidden crevices in the Lofoten granite formations, natural caves and fissures where someone could fall and become trapped beyond detection by surface search methods, some extending deep into the bedrock formed by ancient volcanic activity. The midnight sun itself created optical illusions on the Nordic landscape, making distances and elevations difficult to judge accurately, particularly when the low angle of the Arctic sun cast long shadows and created deceptive perspective effects that could lead even experienced hikers astray. Traditional Sami knowledge keepers spoke of ancient spirits connected to solstice celebrations, stories passed down through generations about time distortions and mysterious disappearances during the peak of the midnight sun, though investigators focused primarily on scientific explanations. The Norwegian Hiking Association conducted a comprehensive review of trail safety protocols, questioning whether midnight sun hiking required additional precautions beyond standard mountain safety procedures, given the unique psychological and physical challenges posed by eternal daylight. Local photographers familiar with Astrid's work and ambitious nature suggested she might have attempted increasingly dangerous shots, drawn by the unique light conditions of the endless Nordic day and the competitive drive to capture images that had never been photographed before. Psychological profiles compiled by Norwegian mental health professionals indicated no signs of depression, suicidal ideation, or personal crises that might explain an intentional disappearance, painting Astrid as mentally stable and excited about her future photography projects. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to not miss our next mysteries from Nordic lands, because what happened next would challenge all expectations about disappearances in one of the world's safest regions during the eternal light of the Norwegian midnight sun. 8 years after Astrid's disappearance, her sister Emma was cleaning out their childhood bedroom in the family's traditional Norwegian cabin, a painful task she'd avoided for years, but finally felt ready to complete. Hidden behind old Nordic folktales, photography magazines, and equipment manuals, she discovered Astrid's backup camera, an old Nikon digital SLR that everyone had forgotten existed, buried beneath layers of memories from their shared childhood. In rain, the battery was completely dead after years of neglect, but Emma managed to charge it, using Astrid's old equipment that their parents had preserved exactly as she'd left it, a shrine to their missing daughter that had remained untouched since the investigation concluded. What she found on that memory card would shatter everything investigators thought they knew about the case and challenge the fundamental understanding of what had happened on that solstice night. The photo showed Astrid's final journey to Kvalvika beach in perfect, heart-wrenching detail. The golden midnight sun reflecting off the Norwegian sea like molten metal. The dramatic Lofoten peaks bathed in eternal light that made them appear almost supernatural traditional red Råbua cabins looking like scattered toys against the massive Nordic landscape that dwarfed human presence. But it was the timestamps that made Emma's blood freeze in her veins as she stared at the camera's LCD display in disbelief. According to the camera's internal clock, meticulously maintained by German precision engineering, the photos weren't taken on June 21, 2016. They were taken on June 21, 2024, 8 years in the future, 8 years after Astrid had vanished without a trace. The impossibility of it struck Emma like a physical blow, yet the evidence was undeniable on the small screen before her. The images showed Astrid exactly as she'd been the night she disappeared, wearing the same red hiking jacket, carrying the same photography equipment, even her blonde hair braided in the identical style she'd worn that fatal evening. But the landscape around her had changed in subtle ways that only someone intimately familiar with the area would notice. New erosion patterns on the granite cliffs carved by 8 years of Arctic weather, slightly different vegetation growth, patterns showing the natural progression of time, a weathered trail marker sign that had been newer and brighter in 2016. Most disturbing of all, the final photos in the sequence showed Astrid reaching toward the camera with an expression of dawning horror, her blue eyes wide with terror as if she'd suddenly realized something impossible was happening to her. The background showed the midnight sun, positioned at an angle that would have been astronomically impossible during the 2016 solstice. The sun was positioned exactly where complex celestial calculations confirmed it would be during the 2024 summer solstice, 8 years later. Nordic photography experts and digital forensic specialists confirmed the metadata was authentic, completely untampered with, created by the camera's original internal circuitry using timestamps that couldn't be artificially manipulated without leaving detectable traces. And it was at this moment that the investigation took a completely unexpected turn, revealing that Nordic landscapes hide mysteries much deeper than anyone could have imagined under the eternal light of the midnight sun. The discovery of the impossible photographs triggered the largest search operation in Lofoten's recorded history, mobilizing resources from across Scandinavia in an unprecedented effort to solve a mystery that challenged the laws of physics themselves. The Norwegian police reopened the case immediately, deploying every available resource across the Arctic landscape with an urgency driven by the impossible evidence Emma had uncovered. Advanced ground-penetrating radar equipment, borrowed from archaeological surveys and mining operations, systematically scanned the granite cliffs where Astrid's trail had ended, searching for hidden caves, crevices, or underground formations that might have been missed during the original investigation 8 years earlier. International experts arrived from across Scandinavia and beyond, geologists from the University of Oslo, digital forensics specialists from Sweden's National Laboratory of Forensic Science, quantum physicists from Denmark's Niels Bohr Institute, all attempting to explain the impossible timestamps that defied everything they understood about linear time. The Norwegian University of Science and Technology sent specialized teams to analyze the unique Nordic granite formations for unusual magnetic properties, rare mineral compositions, or electromagnetic anomalies that might affect electronic equipment in ways previously unknown to science. Arctic climate specialists conducted detailed studies comparing weather patterns, atmospheric conditions, and solar activity from both 2016 and 2024, searching for connections between the two solstice periods. That might explain the temporal anomaly. The midnight sun phenomenon itself was scrutinized like never before, with teams of astrophysicists and atmospheric scientists investigating whether specific Arctic conditions during the summer solstice could theoretically create temporal distortions or affect the flow of time in localized areas. Local Sami elders, their traditional knowledge suddenly treated with new respect by the scientific community. shared ancient stories about time distortions during solstice celebrations, Nordic legends about the thin places where past and future intersected, stories that had been dismissed as folklore but now seemed to possess uncomfortable relevance. The Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation documented every aspect of the renewed search, creating unprecedented international media attention for a missing person case in the remote Arctic, with journalists and camera crews from around the world descending on the tiny village of Rain. Marine archaeologists from the Norwegian Maritime Museum explored the Norwegian Sea around Kvalvika Beach using advanced sonar and underwater robotics to map caves, underwater formations, and seafloor, anomalies that hadn't been thoroughly investigated during the original search. The search teams worked in continuous shifts around the clock, taking full advantage of the endless daylight that had been present during both Astrid's original disappearance and the mysterious photographed timestamps, as if the midnight sun itself was somehow central to the mystery. Mountain rescue specialists from across Norway volunteered their expertise, driven by professional pride and genuine fascination with a case that challenged everything they understood about disappearances in Nordic terrain they thought they knew completely. Share this video with someone fascinated by Nordic mysteries. They'll be amazed by this twist and by what's about to be revealed about the secrets that Nordic lands guard under the eternal Arctic sun. On June 21st, 2024, exactly 8 years after Astrid's disappearance and perfectly matching the impossible timestamp on her mysterious photographs, search teams positioned themselves at the precise location where her footprints had ended, equipped with every piece of scientific monitoring equipment the Norwegian government could deploy. As the midnight sun reached the exact angle shown in her final, terrifying photographs, something extraordinary occurred in the Nordic landscape that would forever change how scientists understood the relationship between time, space, and the unique conditions of the Arctic Circle. The granite cliffs began exhibiting unusual magnetic readings that spiked far beyond normal parameters, detected by sensitive geological equipment that had been monitoring the area continuously for weeks in preparation for this moment. The Arctic atmosphere itself seemed to shift and waver, creating optical distortions that made the Norwegian Sea appear to bend and ripple like liquid mercury, defying the calm weather conditions that meteorologists had predicted. At exactly 11:47 p.m., the precise time Astrid had last been seen 8 years earlier, down to the minute recorded on her GPS, search teams reported hearing what sounded unmistakably like a camera shutter clicking repeatedly from somewhere within. The granite formations echoing off the stone walls with a clarity that made everyone freeze in recognition. Thermal imaging equipment detected a brief but distinct heat signature, moving through areas that appeared completely solid on visual inspection, a human-shaped warmth that lasted only seconds before vanishing as mysteriously as it had appeared. The midnight sun's reflection on the Norwegian Sea created patterns identical to those captured in Astrid's impossible photographs, confirming with scientific precision the accuracy of details that theoretically shouldn't have existed in 2016, validating the authenticity of images that defied temporal logic. Norwegian geologists made a stunning discovery. The Lofoten granite contained rare mineral compositions, including naturally occurring quartz formations and trace amounts of radioactive elements that could theoretically create localized electromagnetic fields under very specific conditions that occurred only during the summer solstice, when the midnight sun reached its most extreme angle and the Earth's magnetic field interacted with Arctic atmospheric phenomena in ways that scientists were only beginning to understand. The ancient Nordic landscape revealed properties that challenged modern physics, suggesting that traditional Sami stories about time distortions and thin places weren't folklore passed down through superstition, but historical records of actual phenomena observed and documented by indigenous people over centuries of living in harmony with the Arctic environment. Search teams found fresh footprints in the mountain moss, prints that matched Astrid's hiking boots exactly, appearing in the precise location where her original trail had ended 8 years earlier. The impressions still warm to the touch and detected by thermal imaging as having been made within minutes of discovery. But most shocking of all, Hidden within a granite crevice that geological surveys swore hadn't existed during previous searches, teams found Astrid's original camera, the primary device she'd carried the night she disappeared, its memory card, containing photographs showing her perspective of that final night, including impossible images of search teams looking for her, while she remained trapped in some form of temporal displacement, unable to make contact, despite being physically present and desperately trying to signal for help. The photographs showed her watching rescue helicopters fly directly overhead without seeing her, her hands waving frantically at searchers who passed within feet of her location as if she existed in a parallel timeline that occasionally intersected with normal reality. But even with all the advanced technology and Nordic search systems, sophisticated equipment that represented the pinnacle of human scientific achievement, questions remained unanswered that would echo forever through the vast Scandinavian landscapes under the eternal midnight sun. Astrid was never found, but the discovery of her cameras revealed a mystery that forever changed how we understand disappearances in Nordic environments and challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of time and space in Arctic regions. The photographs from both devices created an impossible timeline that seemed to transcend normal concepts of temporal progression, documenting experiences that defied everything scientists thought they knew about the physical laws governing reality. In extreme Arctic conditions, her family finally had answers about her final moments, but those answers raised even more disturbing questions about the fundamental nature of the Norwegian wilderness during extreme astronomical events like the summer solstice, when the boundary between day and night dissolved entirely. The local community of Rain was forever altered by the revelation that their familiar Nordic landscape harbored mysteries beyond human comprehension, secrets that had been hidden beneath the surface of their daily lives for generations. Emma kept both cameras, preserving the impossible photographs as evidence of her sister's experience and a testament to the unknown forces that exist in the Arctic Circle, forces that traditional Sami wisdom had acknowledged for centuries, but modern science was only beginning to recognize. The Norwegian authorities established new protocols for solstice hiking in the Lofoten Islands, acknowledging that certain conditions during the midnight sun phenomenon required additional precautions that previous generations had never considered necessary, including mandatory GPS tracking and regular check-ins during the peak solstice period. Scientists from universities across Scandinavia continue studying the granite formations where Astrid disappeared, searching for a deeper understanding of the temporal anomalies that seem to occur in that specific location during summer solstice periods, hoping to prevent future disappearances, or at least understand the mechanism behind them. The case became legendary among Nordic mystery enthusiasts and paranormal researchers worldwide, representing one of the most thoroughly documented instances of impossible phenomena in modern Scandinavian history, with physical evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Emma often visits the spot where her sister's footprints ended, especially during the midnight sun season, hoping for any sign of Astrid's continued existence in whatever dimension or time frame she might inhabit, carrying flowers and maintaining a small memorial that has become a pilgrimage site for others fascinated by the mystery. The traditional red Råbua cabins of Raina now serve as an unofficial memorial to Astrid, and a reminder that even in the most familiar Nordic environments, the midnight sun can reveal mysteries that challenge human understanding of reality itself, forcing us to acknowledge that the Arctic landscape holds secrets we may never fully comprehend. And so while some answers were found in the unforgiving Nordic landscapes, others remain buried forever in the eternal mists and infinite silence of the Arctic wilderness under the midnight sun. This case reminds us that even in the most organized and safe societies in the world, the vastness of Nordic nature continues to be a human mystery, capable of making people simply disappear while leaving only echoes in the eternal landscapes of Scandinavia and questions that may never be answered by conventional science. The midnight sun phenomenon, celebrated across the Nordic countries as a symbol of summer and renewal, revealed its capacity to create conditions beyond current scientific understanding, challenging our assumptions about the fundamental nature of time and space in Arctic environments. Astrid's story illustrates the complex relationship between humans and the Arctic environment, where ancient Sami wisdom about temporal distortions during solstice periods proved more accurate than modern. Skepticism had acknowledged, forcing scientists to reconsider traditional knowledge that had been dismissed as superstition. The Norwegian wilderness, with its dramatic granite formations and extreme astronomical conditions, demonstrated that Western science still has much to learn about the fundamental nature of reality in Arctic environments, particularly during the unique conditions created by the midnight sun. Her disappearance serves as a humbling reminder that despite advanced technology, organized search systems, and comprehensive safety protocols representing the pinnacle of human achievement, the Nordic landscape retains mysteries that transcend human comprehension, especially during the eternal light of the midnight sun, when the normal rules of day and night cease to apply in the Arctic Circle. The case forces us to confront the possibility that our understanding of time, space, and reality itself may be fundamentally incomplete, and that the answers to some mysteries may lie beyond the reach of conventional scientific investigation, hidden in the eternal silence of the Nordic wilderness, where ancient forces still operate according to laws we have yet to discover or understand. If this Nordic disappearance story impressed you, leave a like, subscribe to Nordic Missing channel, share with anyone interested in Scandinavian mysteries, and activate notifications for our next cases. In the comments, share your theory about this temporal disappearance. We love your perspectives. Do you think Astrid is trapped between timelines? Could the midnight sun create temporal anomalies? Your theories fascinate us, and remember, in the vast Nordic landscapes under the midnight sun, there are always more mysteries waiting in the eternal mists of the Arctic North. Stories that challenge everything we think we know about reality itself. Until the next mystery from Scandinavian lands,